If you're a business owner, you don't need us to tell you running a business is tough. Don't let QuickBooks and spreadsheets slow you down anymore. Now is the time to upgrade to NetSuite by Oracle, the world's #1 cloud business system. NetSuite gives you the visibility and control over your financials, HR, inventory, e-commerce, and more. Join the over 21,000 companies using NetSuite right now. Schedule your free product tour right now at netsuite.com/C-suite. netsuite.com/C-suite.
Welcome to the Superhero Homies podcast. My name is Quentin, and as always, I'm here with the homie Kevin.
Good evening, everybody. Hopefully your midweek is going pretty daggum well. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Hump day, as they called it.
Hump day. By the time you listen to this, it'll probably be Thursday.
Which might be hump day for you. You know, who knows? I don't know your schedule.
It'd be hump day for me. I gotta work Saturday.
Oh, that sucks. Yeah. That super sucks. Hopefully you guys don't have to work weekends.
What does not suck is our topic for the evening.
Yeah.
For the day.
That was some kind of segue.
God Loves, Man Kills, the Chris Claremont classic story written for the X-Men. It is a really great and really fun and also at times really dark story. It is a really good one though. God Loves, Man Kills. For those of you who are not familiar with this story, it was interesting. It was written back in like 82 is when it was printed. And when this story came out, it was very relevant for the times of the day. And it's interesting because as I was rereading the story again, maybe like 2 weeks ago when I reread it, so
sure.
I'm still a little foggy, but for most things I remember pretty clearly. And Mr. Claremont was being interviewed in the beginning of the graphic novel, and as he was being interviewed, the interview actually takes place in more modern day because this is a re-release that I own, and in the re-release version, he's talking about how when he wrote it for the day, it was very relevant for the time, but now he finds that it has even more relevance for today, and I gotta agree with it. There's a lot that goes on in this story that really does apply for today's matters.
Right. I remember actually finding a few things in my own studying of everything here. For instance, some of the stuff that they talk about, even in Kitty Pryde's conversations very early in the story, we'll get into detail in a minute here. Mm-hmm. Some of the stuff that Charles goes through later on in the book, it's pretty daggum dark, and it's really surprising. I thought to myself that some of this wouldn't even be allowed in certain printings. Like certain publishers would have just said, nah, we're not going to front with that. We good. We're not going to screw with it. We're going to lose readers because of this. I mean, so this was actually kind of a ballsy read in my opinion.
Yeah, it was. I think a lot of people mistake, older comic writings, for being all jovial or being, all lighthearted and all that. And that's really not the case. Nah. That's more like 60s writing, honestly. 60s and some 70s writing. But, a lot of the 80s and 90s, of course, have more dark themes, not all the time, but when the writer sees fit for it. The X-Men have always been a good fit for that style of writing, That's kind of their forte because they deal with socio-political topics that are, pretty relevant for real life situations and scenarios.
Right. I mean, help me remember this or not. I'm pretty sure that Xavier and Magneto were both fashioned after Martin Luther King and Malcolm, correct?
Yeah, Malcolm X.
Exactly. I'm pretty sure I remember that comparison being made very early on.
Right. Now, I did read that somewhere. I'm not for certain in that if that was an actual quote taken from Stan the Man Lee. I want to say that it was, but then again, I didn't get a direct source for that. So
okay,
but it probably was. But I on the podcast, I don't feel comfortable confirming it.
Oh yeah, no. Oh.
Yeah. But a lot of comparisons have been made between Dr. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. That Professor X and and Magneto are just extreme versions of these real life characters that we got. And of course, it can also be argued that because the X-Men really took off during the civil rights movement, and seeing that Dr. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X really were like the forefront of that and what they were doing. So that comparison is a really fair and oftentimes accurate comparison. But yeah, so I guess we'll go ahead and get into it.
Yeah, for sure.
God Loves, Man Kills.
And I couldn't find any verification whether or not that analogy was actually, stated by the creators or anything like that. No, I just see a lot of people talking about it, debating about it, and other people just asking random Google questions again, like, can Professor X read minds? Things like that. That's all.
That's Poppycock. He actually can't read minds. He's actually not even a mutant. He's just
really good fortune teller.
He just pretends that he can, and then people just kind of take his word for it. He put up this facade. It's like, I choose not to read people's minds because it's an invasion of privacy. In reality, he just can't read minds.
Exactly. Yep. I mean, if you can get anyone to get away with that, Patrick Stewart right there. You're good.
What about James McAvoy? There is no more Patrick Stewart.
Also, yes. Have you not seen Split? I know you have.
Yeah. But anyways, I just made all that up, obviously. But yeah, so let's get into it, guys. God Loves, Man Kills. I really love how this story opens because the way that it opens really sets the pace and the tone as to what we can expect for this story to be. It opens up with these two kids, Mark and Jill, ages 11 and 9. They're in Westport, Connecticut, and it's nighttime, and these kids are running, and you can see the fear drawn in their eyes. And, they're talking about how they can't afford to slow down. They're right behind them. They got to keep going. But, they're just kids. They're getting tired. And at this point, we don't know what they're running from or why they're running. But, we know, or we can at least sense that they're in some sort of grave danger. Mm-hmm. And, what happens is that eventually they're caught up to by the Purifiers. And the Purifiers, as we come to find out, they are a group of crusaders for William Stryker. And actually, this story is William Stryker's first appearance. Mm-hmm. So that's really cool also. And what happens is that the Purifiers tell little Mark and Jill that they were the ones that they killed their parents and that they are going to kill them now. And so they shoot Mark just front and center, right in front of little Jill. And then they proceed to kill Jill also. And they string their bodies up on the swing sets because the kids, they're running through a school playground. And the Purifiers, their plan is to string them up on the swing set so that as the children and the staff come into school the next day, they can see the hanging bodies of these two children.
Right.
And of course,
there's a sign across them. One of them saying "mutie" at the same time, kind of like as a derogatory in this sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the whole point and purpose of it is to let people know that that they're coming for the mutants and that the mutants should be afraid and that they're a blight on society and all that. Even though it's very hypocritical and ironic that a hate group of all people are calling other people blights on humanity. Like I said, these things have relevance to today.
Yep.
I don't think that it was coincident also that Mark and Jill were black kids. And so seeing them strung up, really kind of hits a chord, at least with me in particular. And as their bodies being strung up on the swing set, the Purifiers leave, and sometime after they leave, but before sunrise, Magneto comes along and he takes the children's bodies down. And Magneto, he's on to what's happening here. And I really love this because, up until this point in the X-Men continuity, there have been a time or two where Magneto has been seen as somewhat of a babyface, somewhat of a good guy. But in this story in particular, it really does ring home that Magneto does have a lot of positive qualities about him. And you can only imagine what seeing something like this does to a person like Magneto, knowing that these kids were strung up simply because they were mutants.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's kind of like the Old Villains podcast we spoke about so many podcast episodes ago. A great villain at some point is going to have a very dramatic turning point. Like, they might have a great mindset and a great motivation saying, you know what? This is wrong what they're doing to our kind. We need to stand up for ourselves. Yeah, I can get behind that. We need to kill them all. Whoa, bro. You went off the edge, man.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Something clicked. Something went. You know,
Right.
in this case, Magneto is a huge flying example of that idea. Like, great guy, great idea, horrible follow through. Like, no, don't do that. Let's not kill all the things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in this story, especially if you're a mutant, you can definitely sympathize with Magneto's cause.
Oh yeah, in this story, it's also almost not really justifiable what he wants to do, but you understand his point of view more so in this one, very much so. Oh yeah.
Well, I guess that's the thing. Like, if once again, we've had this conversation plenty of times, but seeing your family being killed, and then seeing other people like you also being killed, just because of who they are, like, that does something to the human psyche. And then, at that point, especially if you're Magneto, you can kind of not really justify, but you also can't vilify him either. But you do definitely sympathize with this character, and even to a certain degree, even empathize with him, because he's wanting safety and refuge for his people. But Magneto is smart enough to realize that just perhaps the only way to accomplish that goal is the extinction of the human race, and that Homo superior is the natural next step in evolution. Just let it happen. But, yeah, and so it's a really strong first act that we get here in the story. Yeah. And the next thing we get here is William Stryker. We get our first appearance of the man himself.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
What you think of his first appearance here? He's prepping for the Sunday sermon by watching videos of the current X-Men. Then we get the current lineup of them.
Right. Like, okay, so in the comic, what we do is we kind of come upon Stryker first off in a big ass skyscraper. Don't ask me how a preacher was able to afford that. Fill in the blanks with your own ideas of tithes.
Have you not seen?
Oh, trust me, I've seen. Oh, indeed.
I hate to call out some on the podcast.
I know, right?
Just, Joel Osteen.
I know. Yeah, that's the prime example.
T.D. Jakes. There's and there one that even has money in his name.
That's a hell of a preacher. Dang.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't gonna say nothing, but you know what? Might as well.
Yeah.
But no. So he's in his big, awesome, huge, great, and spacious skyscraper here, and all of a sudden you see him going from Bible reading to gathering this intel that was given to him about each member of the X-Men, in this case being Cyclops, Storm, Wolverine, Colossus, Kitty Pryde, and Nightcrawler, and of course Professor X. But in this case, he's just kind of studying up on them, getting to know their separate powers, and, essentially, studying the enemy is the tone right here, because later on he kind of hints at the idea that, I'm going to go get them. I'm going to go get those X-Men. I'm going to put them in the dirt. In my first appearance of him, honestly, dude, going back to your question here, so like many others out there, my first introduction to Stryker was from X2, the movie that was loosely, capital L, every other letter in the word, loosely based off of. There are very few similarities, but the ones that are made are, they're prominent and they're good similarities. But in this case, Stryker was not a military leader. No, this guy's a preacher. So reading about him here was kind of like an eye-opener in this moment. Like, oh, look at him reading the Bible, being a good soldier. Oh, wait, he's not a soldier. He's a preacher. Oh, okay. And then as I continued reading, it was very much like this is very interesting what the actual character is like. Huh, go figure.
Well, I mean, William Stryker was a military man.
Right. Drinking problems I can't remember how everything happened in order. No, he had the family problems, which he caused himself, technically. And then
it was all after his military career.
Right.
But he had an extensive career in the military first. But as far as like, you know, the similarities between William Stryker here in this story and William Stryker in the X-Men movie series, you know, there are a few liberties being taken, but I think the core values of the man are still the same, and I think that's the most important part that they did nail in X2 specifically.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Because William Stryker in the movie X2, he does have a mutant son. We learned that he also has one in the story later on. Yeah. He takes Professor X and Cyclops hostage in the movie. He also does take those two hostages here as well, that we're going to get to later on. So there are a few similarities here that they really do have a lot of fun with in the movies.
Right.
But yeah,
and a few others we can expound upon in a few minutes too. Yeah.
But William Stryker overall, though, like you really do understand his agenda and how dangerous a man like that can be, because it becomes obvious that the man has built up some sort of following, and that people will follow you. Oftentimes, if you're charismatic or if you just vaguely make one or two good points, and that's kind of William Stryker's strong suits here. But yeah, he just makes it extremely clear that he does not want the X-Men around. You know, I think it's his secretary that comes in at one point, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, are those the X-Men? Those mutants?" He goes, "Well, if everything goes to plan, not for long."
Basically,
we know that he does have plans for the X-Men. So moving on here, that's actually like the prelude to the actual story. We actually pick up with chapter 1, and it takes place right outside of a dance studio by like I guess a pretty famous ballerina, at least in the X-Men verse here.
Right.
And Kitty Pryde is attending this dance school under the instructions of this ballerina, and so is Illyana Rasputin, aka Magic, Colossus' little sister. She's a prominent part of the story also. And these two are in the dance studio. It looks like they're just wrapping things up. And then all of a sudden we just see like exploding through...
Glass shatter.
Yeah, exploding through the window is Kitty Pryde yelling at and fighting with this boy named Daniel, or Danny. And it's really interesting seeing this, because like we rarely, especially at this day and age, see Kitty Pryde explode with such furious rage and anger, and you know, you're kind of wondering what in the world has gotten into Kitty here.
Right.
You know, she's usually more the pacifist, if anything. I mean, she has a little bit of a temper at times, but nothing like this. And come to find out, the fight is because Danny and his family are members of William Stryker's crusade against the mutant kind. And of course, I don't think, they make it obvious that Danny doesn't know that they're mutants. And even Colossus, he comes around. And my first time reading the story, I remember thinking, wait a minute, was Colossus in the dance studio? But no, he actually comes around from the bookstore.
I can imagine that. Big old Colossus just spinning around doing ballet stuff.
Well,
I mean, I don't know ballet stuff, so my imagination's very short-winded here, but yeah.
I don't know how heavy of a man Colossus is, but you know,
I mean, he's still built in the 80s, man.
I'm saying, seeing that titanium is built in the inlays of his skin, I'd imagine make him pretty heavy. But no, he actually comes around from the bookstore, which, you know, is a little bit more fitting for Colossus.
Right, yeah.
And you know, he helps break up the fight. And it's at this point where Kitty explains that this guy is basically talking shit about the mutants, and it's at this point where the ballerina teacher, I forget her name, but I think her name is like Stevie something.
Yeah, Stevie.
Yeah. What was her name? Not like the blonde singer, not that Stevie, not Stevie Wonder.
not quite that one. No.
But no, she asks, you know, what's going on here, and then, you know, they both explain their sides of the story.
Stevie Hunter. There it is. Yeah.
And it's at this point where Chris Claremont almost does something that's a little jarring to me, because I've read a lot of Chris Claremont work, mostly from the early '90s and the late '80s. But what he does here is he drops a hard N-bomb.
He does
right in the beginning of the story here.
Which is one of those things I was talking about earlier, which is like, oh, that's hella surprising to read right now. Okay, this just changed tone on me. Yeah.
And that's the thing of the matter here, is that this story takes place in 1982, which isn't that long ago, and just that long ago, just even race relations were not that highly smiled upon. It was just not that popular of a thing here, and Kitty Pryde, she kind of used that as an analogy when Danny declares his hatred for mutant kind, and Stevie says well, they're just words, and Kitty goes, okay, well, what if he called me a nigger lover, like with the hard R and all, like shit, Kitty.
I know, right?
Yeah. But it's super eye opening, and it'll wake you up to see that. But no, it's an accurate point, though. It does also remind me of another instance, as a matter of fact, in Civil War, in the X-Men edition. The first half of that, if you guys read that, the first half of that actually focuses a lot more on Wolverine and what he's doing during the Civil War, the first Civil War, that is. And he's talking with Luke Cage at one point, and he and Luke Cage are talking, and and Wolverine says something to the effect of, what if there was a cross burning in your yard? Because that's what this feels like for mutants right now. Talking about how the mutants are being hunted, and they're being they're basically being taken advantage of, and they're marked men. And so that was another really gripping kind of moment here, especially for me as a black man. But it really does drive home, what the writers are trying to convey here, and what kind of state the mutants are in. But yeah, so I thought that was a really, really deep and compelling scene here that we get really early on in the story.
Yeah, very much so.
Yep. And also, they're being watched by some of the Purifiers. Stryker has men surveilling the X-Men. So yeah, he's got people with eyes on the X-Men. So he ain't playing no games. Any other thoughts before we move on?
That's some good religion right there. Oh, we never learn what he is, which it doesn't really matter in this story. What matters is he's a public figure going after another kind and doing so wrongfully. Yeah. And that still stands prominently today, folks. Sad enough. Not that we like to get super heavy all the time here, but
when the story calls for it,
exactly. Yeah. And it only gets worse from there, really.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So they come home, the three of them, Illyana, Peter, and Kitty. Mm-hmm. And Kitty, she's still fuming, and Wolverine, he sees that she's got a black eye, and those two have a really fun exchange. Of course, Wolverine and Kitty have always had a really fun relationship.
Yeah.
And even here is pretty fun to read. Wolverine seeing the black eye and asking, "Whoa, so did you win?" And just kind of poking fun, but Kitty's not really having it. Kitty's really upset, and so she kind of storms off. But the biggest thing about this scene here is they all gather down in I guess the living room area, and they're watching ABC News. It's called Nightline. I don't know if that was an actual program in the 80s. Could have been. But the main purpose of it, though, was that on this program was a debate between William Stryker and Charles Xavier. And it's
Good old Stryker set up a televised program, kind of like a live debate thing. It's not too uncommon, but he and, of course, Xavier, being the good-hearted man he is, went off and debated pro-mutant, and our boy Stryker, of course, being the dickhead he is, was anti-mutant, yeah. I'm sorry, was that biased language? I can't narrate this, can I? There it is. No, but it quickly becomes a very lively debate.
It does. It does. This reminds me a lot of the very first act and the very first act in the X-Men 1. We have Jean Grey at a Senate meeting debating Senator Robert Kelly. And
That's true.
Yeah.
And I can't remember, at this point in the movie, Robert Kelly was still human, right? Mm-hmm. I thought so, because he kind of becomes... He's turned into...
Yeah, Magneto tries to alter his genetics to make him a mutant before he does it to all mankind using Rogue.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm trying to decide if they actually succeeded or if they just effed up his genome.
Well, no, because he died shortly after.
Right, yeah. So they just really effed up the poor man's...
Yep.
First you think, oh, he's got jellyfish powers. That's really sad. I'm so sorry. But then you realize, no, he's just screwed.
Yeah.
But that's the movie, X1.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you go back and watch X1, guys, especially that scene, that debate between Jean Grey and Senator Kelly, it really does ring home here to the debate between Professor X and William Stryker.
Right.
Because there are a lot of similarities in their debates and what they're saying. And it makes you think, if mutants were a thing today, I can definitely see something like this happening, especially something like this debate where mutants are almost demonized and stereotyped into all being, these subhuman, evil entities that are trying to, replace us. I mean, hell, I'm not going to get it specific here, but there's a lot of propaganda and political satire that demonizes a lot of other groups.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
Yeah, and so the shit does happen, and so whenever you read something like this, it really does kind of bring it home that this is a comic book, but it's not that far-fetched.
Exactly. Like, this is the kind of stuff that people don't realize comic books can do gracefully. This is the kind of stuff that people forget comic books can represent and air out for us just as well as classic literature.
Yeah.
If not better, because it has pictures.
Yeah.
But I do know that at this point, actually, thinking about your earlier thought here, that if mutants and humans were coexisting today in our present society, there would be a lot more commenting, backlash posting, and just trolling overall through Facebook and Instagram and all other forms of social media. And there would be an equal amount of, aimed attention from other sources of actual news media and whatnot, thus trying to, like you've been saying all night, demonize the mutant race again. So, really, it would be totally different while not changing a damn thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you have it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Only difference, certain mutants would probably use, weird elemental powers or something instead of weaponry.
Very true.
There it is, yeah.
Yeah, they would probably definitely think, if the mutants all gathered together, then they could do anything. At least that's actually Senator Kelly's debate in X1.
Right.
It's funny, actually, in X1, he mentions, I know there's a little girl that can apparently walk through walls.
Yep.
And, and of course, Kitty Pryde, she's almost like the star character here in this story.
Yep.
But yeah, so the debate does not go well for Professor X, also shades of X1. And
Poor dude.
Yeah, it's really,
At least he has a nice car.
Oh, in X1, yeah.
No, I mean in the comic,
in the
dude,
comics,
he's rocking
yeah.
a daggum
That
Rolls Royce,
Yeah.
or
No,
Royals Royce or something like that. Yeah.
No, it's Rolls Royce.
No, that's our actual pronunciation of it. Yeah. But in my research of this before tonight, they pronounced it Royals Royce, and I remember thinking to myself, like, wait a minute, that's not the actual. I'm not rich enough to afford or know the difference, but that's not the actual difference.
Right? Yeah, like I'm by trade, guys. I'm a car guy, and I don't even know that. I don't. There's no need for me to know.
This is true. This is his alter ego job. But there you go.
Yeah, but yeah. So the debate does not go well. Storm and Cyclops are watching on the sidelines and they're like, "Yeesh." This was supposed to, kind of be our moment to hopefully, get ourselves out there and, for people to see that we can be a source of good.
Exactly.
And,
like wave the white flag and extend the olive branch, but
right.
nah.
Yeah. William Stryker had other plans. So, yep.
He shot the flag and burnt the branch.
Yep. Damn. And at this point, we are also introduced to his right-hand lady, whose name is Anne, William Stryker's right-hand lady, that is. She is like his first lieutenant in his Purifier Crusade. And
there's always one crazy girl.
Yeah.
On evil teams like this, I feel like there's always one who's like the
true.
go-to lieutenant. Maybe not necessarily crazy, but
like Magneto had Mystique.
True.
Just sticking in the X-Men verse.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's typically always one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, freaking Cobra. Yeah.
Oh, G.I. Joe?
There you go, G.I. Joe. He had his own like evil posse of evil women, Yeah. Anyways,
I'm not that well
subject.
versed in G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
But yeah, so apparently they also had some type of psionic shields up so that even if Professor X wanted to, he couldn't read their minds to know that they had very malicious plans for them in the very near future.
I'm kind of wondering how they did that. Like, how do you psionic shield and not have Professor X notice? Like, I'm not saying it's not probable in the story. I'm just kind of curious, like, oh, well, what was the mechanism behind that? But I don't know.
So are you wondering why Professor X didn't notice why there were shields or how they're able to make shields?
It's more the latter, though the first question you asked just then, how did he not notice, would also be a fair question to ask, I feel. I mean, at this point, comics.
Yep.
Yeah. I'll chalk it up to because technology like that existed and it was no need to explain for the sake of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do I answer myself and my own questions?
Yep. So Professor Xavier, Scott, and Oro, they were ambushed and presumed dead shortly hereafter. They were in a car driving along. That car it's set up to look like an accident, quote unquote. That's a hell of an accident.
I know, right?
Explosions and all, and they do a really good job here at faking us out, and they do this a couple times throughout the story, which I thought was a really nice touch because it looks like the like Storm, Cyclops, and Professor X. It looks like they straight up die here, like damn.
Which, as far as mutant deaths go, especially if you're a combating team of mutants fighting for mutant rights, that's kind of a man, really? That's how you died? Right. But
they're straight up taken down, caught off guard, because they don't even know where the enemy threat's coming from, and they do it right by taking out Professor X first, and then going for Scott and Storm. But yeah, so they're presumed dead, and also there's like a scene in here also where the X-Men have or the remaining X-Men, they have like a training protocol. They do this a couple times throughout the story here, and it's really just shown to build the team dynamic and to show them work together. And it's always really cool to see that dynamic, especially in a story driven form like this, to see how they all work together and how they all use their powers to help accomplish the task. But yeah, there's not a whole lot there. But moving on here, the X-Men, they get a call that, hey, so your guys are dead. And of course it's like, oh shit, they're dead. And so Kirk kind of tells everybody that, hey, X-Men are dead. Scott and Storm and Professor X are all dead.
just like that.
Yep, just like that. Just like that.
Oh, by the way, before you go pick up milk and eggs, the X-Men are dead.
But we are the X-Men. Yep.
All right.
So yeah, the remaining X-Men, which at this point is Colossus, Wolverine, and Nightcrawler specifically, those three, they go and investigate a crime scene. Kitty Pryde and Illyana, they're not too far off, but they're not really here with the other three guys.
Right. And kind of getting some split screen action in the comic at this point. Yeah.
Logan, he's looking around and he's the first to notice that something's not right here.
Logan's senses are tingling.
What Logan does is actually kind of dark and also still pretty much Wolverine. Mm-hmm. He says to Colossus, "They're saying right, this is a setup." And Colossus goes, "How do you know that?" And Wolverine goes, "Because I've done this setup a time or two in my life." And it's like, oh, okay.
And then he could smell the bodies and he could say, well, they're burned to no recognition. It fooled the cops. It was meant to fool us, but nope, this isn't our people. No one in this car is anyone we recognized.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so what they do is they end up ambushing the guys that are surveilling them. They have Kurt, of course, surprise them first. Why not have the teleporter of the group do that? So it's really good that they did that.
Yeah, smart.
Yeah.
It's like they have been practicing.
Yeah. One of my favorite parts of this scene, though, is as the Purifiers try to drive away, Colossus basically stands in front of the car, and the car, of course, smashes into him, and Colossus rips the engine from the car. It's like, I'll take this.
Super cool moment, actually. Like, the illustration's pretty sweet. Just, I have the book open in front of me now, and looking at it, it's like, well, damn.
Yeah.
Why worry about him?
Yeah. But what happens next is that the X-Men actually get ambushed. So in their attempt to ambush, they get ambushed.
Yeah. It's like they're playing a bad card game. I play ambush. I play counter ambush with ambush.
Yeah,
damn it!
It's like Uno when people play house rules. You do like the reverse card and draw 4, then they do the reverse card and draw 4, and it's like, damn.
So what are we up to now? Draw 24? All right, that's about right. I hated that version growing up, man.
Yeah.
I'd always end up with like 15 plus cards in hand, just like, you stack up dickheads. Just
exactly, because whenever you play Uno, especially with people that are the closest to you, it never happens with strangers. Only with people that you know and love.
Exactly.
They'll hold on to those draw 4 cards and those
spitefully.
Yeah, spitefully. Up until like the last moment, they see you got like 1 or 2 cards left, and then they'll put down like 3 in a row. It's like, oh.
And then you try to cheat because you have 3 yellow 2s, and you're just like, let me pack all these on top of each other real careful, like, and try to lay them all down sneakily, and everyone's like, man, I saw that. Put that back in your hand. Oh.
Well, I never cheated as hard as Kevin did. Because that thought never crossed my mind.
Only when I had 3 or more of the same color of the same card.
That's just
sometimes I threw in a blue 2 in with those yellow 2s. Sometimes.
That's just bad luck and really crappy shuffling.
It really is, actually, at that point.
But yeah, Uno and Monopoly, man. Those got to be the 2 games that just ruin relationships.
Agreed. Though I rocked at Monopoly. I was pretty damn good at that. Yeah.
But yeah, anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the X-Men were playing Uno, and and then they get hit.
Kitty came in and said, let's play Monopoly.
Yeah, and then they get hit with a draw 4. But no, so this purifier in like a mutant killing mech suit comes up, and it's like, I got y'all asses now. And he kind of does have them dead to rights with his mutant killing beam of Death Ray. And
yeah, that seems a little excessive.
Hey, man. Stryker has spared no expense in killing mutants.
Making all that preacher money.
Yeah. But fortunately, Magneto comes in again for the save, and he rips those mech suits to shreds and wraps up the purifiers with the metal from the mech suits. So it's pretty fun to watch that, too. And, of course, Wolverine's like, what the hell are you doing here, bub? And like, Magneto's like, hey, man, I'm here as an ally this time.
Verbatim.
Yep. Just like that. It's like, I know you guys are wondering, like, how do I memorize all of this direct dialogue? I mean, I guess just a gift. It's my mutant power,
Just don't think about it.
Just don't think about it, yeah.
Yeah. I could totally just imagine Eric right now, just like, don't worry about it, dude. I'm on your side.
Yeah. Hey, bro, I got this, man. Just chill out. All right, Wolverine. Word for word.
Exactly.
Yep.
And you can get Wolverine pretty easy if you just keep dropping Bub. And you can say whatever, just Bub.
Yep. And so they take the goons back to home base, and Wolverine threatens them, because of course he does. And,
Hell yeah.
with holding his fist up beneath their chin, and then extending the two outer claws and threatening to pop the middle claw, which of course would kill them.
Yeah.
And Magneto goes, you know what? Let me try this. I think I got a method. And Wolverine says something like, "Well, you guys got off lucky." And Magnus is like, "Not really." And so he does some kind of method to them, but he tortures them essentially. Magneto tortures the information out of them, and then that's when they learn that Stryker has this whole crusade with the Purifiers, and that they're planning some kind of coup to kill all mutants. And yeah, like is this right here is supposed to also be another dark moment in the comic, because they're doing whatever they have to do to get the information that they need. So yeah, and as far as what happened to these guys after the fact, don't know, don't think about it.
Basically, yeah. In fact, Nightcrawler, I remember that he actually brought up an interesting point. Like, so if we use their methods against themselves, their methods being, murder and death, how are we better than them in this case? And the panel just continues on. The narration doesn't stop to answer his question. It's just, all right, well, that's a great question. Nightcrawler Chapter 3! Yeah.
Yep. This was definitely, I mean, I can definitely see Magneto and Wolverine having less problems with their methods than the other members.
I mean, literally. Wolverine at this point was like, yep.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't bat an eye. Just,
Right.
All right, someone clean it up and let's go.
Yeah. And of course, Magnus was like, I don't understand your question. Like, what's the problem?
I don't understand the order of words you're using, son. Are you speaking English?
The next thing that we get here is Professor X. He seems to be in like this hellish place. It looks like New York, but it's all red and demonized. And then the X-Men approach him, and they're all demonized with like long, ferocious claws and teeth. And they literally look like demons, and as they're attacking him, and then the savior, none other than William Stryker himself, comes down and a pillar of white light and saves Professor X and says, "Hey, if you just join me and kill them, everything can be right." And
actually, at this part of the story, I noticed something very interesting in the illustrations and the drawings of it all. So, at this point, our boy Xavier is being literally crucified. Just let me reimagine to you guys how gruesome that is.
Yeah.
On top of one of the World Trade Centers, actually.
Yeah.
So, the obvious history here being, this happened way earlier than, obviously, September 11th, So, the question actually came to mind in a whole separate topic, something I did actually still want to ask you nonetheless. Comics that have the neo-Nazi symbolism or any image of Hitler on the cover are worth more, or anything that resembles those ideals in the comic themselves are actually worth more because of that. Do you think that'll happen to this one because of the World Trade Center being present? Not only because it's a great story and a relevant story, but also because of the time frame and the symbolism there. Like, do you think that could happen with the trade centers?
I'm going to say no for a couple of reasons.
Hit me.
So the first reason is going to be because, yes, it is this vision or this nightmare does happen on top of one of the World Trade Center buildings, but it's not really a prominent feature. It's like it's there, but they could literally replace it with any other building.
Okay.
And my second reason is because I can assure you that like the media does not want that. For example, the example that always comes to mind is Spider-Man 1. Spider-Man 1 had the World Trade Centers in the poster, but as soon as it happened, they removed the World Trade Center from the poster because they thought it would upset people.
Right. I kind of forgot about that whole debacle, but you're right. I do remember that now. Yeah. No, just an interesting thought.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I really can't tell time's future here,
Right.
or monetary value of comics as they go up or down, but no, just a thought I had.
Yep.
Let's proceed.
Yeah, and also I guess the other thing is that
what's that?
the World Trade Center is kind of it's a national disaster of an event, whereas Nazi swastika is a representation of evil, Hitler a representation of evil.
Right. Yeah.
This is just a tragic event.
Right. One stood more as propaganda. This one stands more as like a staple, letting us know what time frame this came from.
Yep.
Okay. No, interesting. I mean, we'll see what happens. I doubt it'll become any more valuable or less valuable, really. But well, I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, so the whole point of this though is realize that Stryker is psychically manipulating Charles. He's slowly but surely brainwashing him, which is another feature from X2.
Right.
He was getting inside the mind of Professor X and trying to psychically disturb him, and he's doing the same thing here. But here we find out eventually that he's doing this for the purpose of he's trying to get him accustomed to killing the mutants. That if he can do that, if he can get them to kill the mutants, then he's served his purpose essentially.
In one being the comic here, he's using fancy machinery. In the other, he's using his blue/green-eyed son, who happened to actually live for so many years. Go figure.
Yep.
And was not murdered at birth.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which leads us right into the next part of the story here. We get the twisted origin of Stryker and how he really came to be the man that he is now, and it picks up with him basically ending his military career, or he's on leave or what have you, and he's traveling with his pregnant wife, and I think they're going to Phoenix. They never make it there. Something happens and the car crashes. There's gas leaking everywhere, and his pregnant wife gives birth right then and there. And when she gives birth, we never see the child, but Stryker implies that the child is a mutant. So you can assume there's some sort of physical
some type of disfiguration going on there.
Yeah. I mean, maybe the child looks like Kurt. Or maybe there's some type of physical.
Maybe he had a beak.
yeah. There's some type of physical anomaly that lets him know that this child is actually a mutant.
Help me out here. Which artist, which illustrator for the X-Men, tried to make a lot more like different figured X-Men who weren't all human looking? What? I know we talked about this semi-recently. Who was that?
I don't remember who the artist was, but the writer was Grant Morrison.
Okay.
Cool. He was the one that... and which was a pretty ingenious idea because not all mutants would have quote-unquote superpowers, Right. It makes sense that a lot of them would just be genetic mutations.
And nor should they. It'd be hard to think that extensively about, hey, how many superpowers can we stretch out to cover the face of the earth,
right.
Yeah. In this case, it kind of creatively makes a, convenient difference.
Right. But yeah, so he sees his son as his wife gives birth, and he realizes that this child is a mutant. And he pulls out a knife and he stabs the child. They don't show it, but it is heavily implied that he straight up murders his son. And his wife, as she's laying there, half unconscious, from the wreck and from just giving childbirth, she asks, how's the child? How's my son? And he cradles his wife in his arms and straight up breaks her neck.
Yeah.
Because
the story did get darker.
He does these things because that's what God wants. And
apparently.
Yeah. And at this point, what he does, he realizes that the car is still, it's been leaking gas this whole time. So he takes the baby and his wife, and he puts their bodies back in the car. He gets into the vehicle right next to his wife, and he lights a match. He's trying to just off himself here, I guess, because he realizes that he's lost everything, and but he survives. He miraculously survives, and then he goes on a drinking bender, and eventually comes to the realization that he's not the center. His wife was the center for carrying and giving birth to that evil hell spawn of a child, and that begins his crusade. So yeah, William Stryker is definitely a candidate for the Man of the Year. Upstanding citizen, great guy. You know,
there's a lot of quotation marks going on right now.
He's definitely not a piece of shit. He's
there. It is. Quotation marks in that case were around not, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh man,
grammar is fun.
Grammar is fun. Illyana is kidnapped by the Purifiers, and Kitty Pryde she kind of tracks them down, keeping tabs on Illyana, and so this kind of goes on here for a while with Kitty Pryde kind of running away, and then she basically exhausts her powers because she's using them so much. But the Purifiers they kind of trained mutant expert hunters. So as they're tracking her down, they go through the projects, and they go past some gang members, and the Purifiers.
Why were they all shirtless? In the books, yeah, they were just all like unbuttoned dudes. Like, oh, okay, are we reenacting something here?
I think of the Warriors, which came out in the late 70s, and I mean they were kind of the same way. So just a depiction of gangs back in the day.
Maybe they all came out to play.
We're gonna have to,
ladies and gentlemen, I'm here all evening.
No, he's not. We're gonna have to end this podcast early.
Oh my gosh.
We're gonna leave it at that.
I kind of love myself. All right.
Okay.
Hey, that was the first pun of the night.
That's true. We were 50 minutes into it before the first pun was made. This got to be a record.
That's a new sad record.
Well, let's see. But eventually Kitty, she finds herself on a train cart, trying to get away, and she thinks that she's gotten away at this point. But the Purifiers, they make it onto the train, and they shoot a police officer that's also on the train. And they consider him a casualty of their crusade, and that his blood is on her hands. Because once again, that's morally correct.
Hey, when you write the rule book, you can change them whenever you want, man.
Yeah, basically. And then
I didn't do wrong. You cheated.
Yeah. And then Magneto for the save again. Magneto's on a roll, man. Magneto, and he has the other X-Men with him too. But Magneto's the real MVP of this scene here.
I was just about to use that phrase. Damn.
Yep.
Good job. Get out of my head.
It's my mutant power, Kevin. I can't help it.
Where's my metal helmet at? I need to go fashion one.
You have to remember, though, it's not the metal helmet that keeps him out.
Well, screw you. I'm going to get I was about to say a lead helmet, but that would be really uncomfortable.
It would be.
I would not be happy.
That'd be really heavy on your head.
At that point, I'm not sure which trade-off would be more worth it. Oh, man.
But yeah, Magneto comes down and he rips the train open, and he and the X-Men rescue Kitty Pryde, and then they use like a part of the train as like a magic carpet, as Magneto and the X-Men, use it to sail away to their next destination, which is the Stryker's big ass mega church building.
Yeah.
Yep. Actually, they're going to Madison Square Garden because that's where Stryker's going to have his conference at. This man is such a profitable and charismatic figure that he can use Madison Square Garden to have a sermon. That's a hell of a sermon, because Madison Square Garden can hold a lot of people. But yeah, so at this point, the brainwashed Professor X, he seemingly kills Cyclops and Storm.
Yeah, and the way that happened was actually a very dark situation. It kind of gave me a very heavy BioShock vibe. I'm not sure how far you got into that game, but the way they played with mentality and the idea of manipulating it very much kind of goes hand in hand here with what they did to poor Charles. Just like, hey, so what's going on, bruh? Do you actually like know me as a leader? You know, do you respect me as a leader? Okay, prove it. Oh, are you worthy?
Do you know the way?
Don't you dare. Now we're done, people. Turn off your mics. Turn off your stereos. We're done.
If you do not kill the mutants, then you do not know the way.
It does tie in pretty well. Now we just need to make a joke about going to go find the princess to tie it in somehow. You're pretty good at the voice too, by the way. Like, that's weird ass compliment, but it's a compliment.
Oh man,
You're good at faking content voice. Do you know the way? How was that? Be honest. Yeah,
it was
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I probably can't talk in it. I can just drop a phrase in it.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
But no, you were saying though. Yeah.
I forgot what I was saying. Oh, that's right. I was comparing it to that because it's like, yeah, the manipulated mentality here is definitely like they don't go easy into it, and the reason they're using it instantly hits you is like, oh shit. Well, there goes two of the most prominent members.
Yeah.
No way.
And it's like that fake out I was talking about earlier. It's like it's another fake out here, another good one.
Yeah.
Because you're like, there's no way that they withstand like a full blast of psionic energy from Charles Xavier.
Right.
Like they're just straight up dead, and like they check the vitals and everything. Oh yeah, they're dead.
And then afterwards, I mean, I'm looking at it now here. Xavier's got this uncharacteristic smile, like almost like a child. Like, did I do good?
Yeah.
Like kind of creepy, you know? Yeah. Just weirdly strange, powerful stuff.
Oh yeah. But it really goes to show that William Stryker's plan has come together brilliantly. Mm-hmm. And yeah, he's doing it. Like William Stryker's doing it. He was able to effectively break Charles Xavier to an extent, and that's really saying something. But let's see, moving on here. Where were we? Oh yeah, so as Cyclopses and Storm, their bodies are being carted off to incineration, and they're on the elevator, and they're also taking Illyana's body somewhere else. But it's at this time that the X-Men they rescue and revive the fallen X-Men members. Thank goodness. So come to find out that Charles has a subconscious mental block in his brain that would not allow him to fatally kill any members of the X-Men.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. Which is really clever.
I know, right?
Yeah. I guess if you're the world's, greatest telepath, and you realize that you have potential for great death and destruction.
I'm glad you paid out for that skill.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was worth it. It finally came in handy.
Yep, it came in handy. You guys said it was all a dumb idea.
I know, right? But now, look at this boss fight.
Yeah. Could have killed you, but instead I didn't. You're welcome.
They never second guessed him again.
Oh man. Hopefully it's not just a one-time use.
Exactly. Yeah.
So anyways, Stryker is his sermon begins, and once again he's in Madison Square freaking Garden.
Right.
And
great place to have a showdown.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's at this sermon where he's having like all of the world or all the nation's greatest political figures meet there. So like, from each party on top of that. So it's just full of a bunch of political figures.
The only thing that could have made this more powerful was if Bolivar Trask was, sitting in a chair behind him or something, just like clapping, going, "Amen," you know? Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been nice. Yeah. But so as he's giving his sermon here, he's using verses from the Bible to fit his own twisted rhetoric, and he flips the switch that causes this anti-cerebral machine that he built, and using Charles to funnel the power through it to attack mutants, and it causes them to basically have like brain hemorrhages, It causes them to bleed from the nose and the ears, and just trying to basically like give their brain shaken baby syndrome, basically, until they die.
I was gonna say like a brain aneurysm type thing, but that's good too.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
He's trying to make their brain into the consistency of a milkshake.
Basically, I was gonna say like they treat it like a shaker bottle, trying to get that protein nice and shaken up, but.
Or more like the consistency of a Frosty, because what the hell is a Frosty anyway?
That's true. Do you remember those commercials that classified it as a Sockwid? I still remember that. Yeah, a solid liquid. A Sockwid. Come on, I can't be the only one who remembers that, people.
Maybe you do, but when I think of that term, like a solid liquid, I think of like baby poop.
What?
Because that is also a Sockwid.
I'm so sorry. I'd much rather keep my mind at Frosty.
Maybe that's why I subconsciously just don't like Frosties. They remind me of baby poop.
Someone out there, I pray, right now is eating a Frosty, and they're just like, oh gosh,
I can't do this.
I can't do this. I'm sorry I cheated on my meal plan. If that is you, listener, right now, I am so sorry.
I am not sorry to that homie listening. You need to be awakened, so you can know the way.
So you can do the way. I could just imagine it now. A bunch of listeners go to a Wendy's and have picket signs. Anyways, what am I doing?
So yeah, he's turning their brain into mush. Basically, he's trying to kill. So yeah, this machine is like an anti-cerebro, so it can target mutants, but it attacks them psionically.
Anti-bro.
Yep. And it's at this point here, like, and it's really cool here because throughout this sermon, like even before the switch has been flipped, and afterwards, there's this senator there who's talking like with I guess his handler, and he's like, this Senator Kelly guy has, not Senator Kelly, but this William Stryker has some really twisted rhetoric. Like the things he's saying, like he's just straight up evil. And there's even some people that are comparing like his views to Hitler with the Nazi, with the Nazi rhetoric and all that. But what's cool here is that we find out that this senator, as he's going on about, how twisted Stryker's views are, it's that the senator begins to bleed from the ears and the nose. And then was just a really cool reveal that, hey, this guy's a mutant, which was, it's kind of why he's so against William Stryker's whole ordeal. But it was just a really cool reveal to see that, hey, it's not just the X-Men, but it's normal people, and it's even the senator, people of power, that are mutants. And so that was just a really cool scene there, just for them to put that in there like that. Magneto comes down, and Magneto's trying to stop Stryker as well, and then of course Stryker he reads another verse of scripture comparing Magneto to like the devil or some shit, and then he basically does like a fancy parlor magic trick where he points at Magneto, and at the same time he amplifies the psionic beams and he focuses them directly on Magneto. Right. So it looks like his mighty faith in God is what struck Magneto down, but in reality it was the anti-cerebral machine.
There's that theatricality again.
Yeah, theatricality and deception, a powerful agent to the uninitiated, and apparently Magneto is uninitiated.
Or just a poor sap of a target.
Yeah. So Magneto, he's hit hard with that sonic beam, and also for those of you who are wondering about what I said earlier about Magneto not needing the helmet to protect himself, this is also another proof of that, because it's even here where it goes, even his natural sonic abilities, barely held up against that full force of attack.
Yeah. He hasn't even had on the helmet just to further drive the point home. Yeah. For most of the story.
Right.
But it's at this point that things kind of take an interesting turn, actually.
Oh, yeah. A lot of interesting turns. Between the senator being revealed to be a mutant, the unnamed senator, but he's a mutant.
Which kind of tags, again, the idea of the senator from X2 that was a became a mutant or something in the story, who actually just became the sorry sap jellyfish man.
A little bit, except this senator in the story here is an advocate for the mutants,
right?
Whereas
I'm pretty sure that one was anti-mutant.
Yeah. Well, what was interesting though about Senator Kelly in X1 is that, of course, she was all against the mutants and nothing but mutant hate rhetoric. But when he was, made into a mutant and he was dying, he was talking with Storm and he was asking Storm, "Why do you do all this?" And Storm goes, honestly, because of people like you, because we fear people like you. And his last words were, "Well, you don't have to be afraid of me anymore." Meaning that he finally understood the mutant plight. He finally understood what they go through.
Good job, Kelly.
Yeah. And then, of course, he just melts. He just
kind of melts. And then Mystique takes him over, or his role, essentially. And it's like, oh, wait, now you're pro-mutant? What? Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's pretty clever.
But no, in this case, Nameless Senator, you see some trickling ear blood.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But he's not the only one. But we'll go on. So next up here, we get a lot more cool stuff here as the action just kind of breaks down. Let's see. So the next thing we get here is Anne, the right hand woman.
Yeah.
She's revealed to be a mutant also because she starts bleeding from her nose and ears as well, now things do get really interesting because Stryker, he's like, "Hey, I'm sorry, you're one of them.
You gotta go.
You gotta go." And she's like, "But after everything I've done for you, like, it doesn't mean anything now. You're just gonna throw me away, basically." And then Stryker, with his own twisted form of logic, quote unquote, he's like, "Well, the fact that you won't accept your fate shows me that you're with the enemy." And then he pushes her off the stage and she breaks her neck.
Right. Which, wow.
Yeah.
What the hell, dude?
Right.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, like, this sermon in Madison Square Garden is being filmed. So all this is being caught on tape, on camera.
Like, people are watching this. And he's the one who's like, okay.
Yeah.
That's another one.
But what's crazy is that despite the crazy shit that he's doing, he still has followers, people that want to listen to him, which is another weird symbolism of things of today. Like, there's certain leaders or certain people in power that can just do anything and they will still have followers, no matter how crazy it may seem, to most people. Because it's at this part here where there's a mob of people that are listening to Stryker and are agreeing with him, and they're trying to attack a weakened Magneto, because Magneto, he's been weakened from that psionic blast. But fortunately, the cops here are on their shit. They're on their, they're doing good. And the cops, they're trying to keep the people at bay and telling Magneto, "Hey, you need to get the hell out of here, man."
Which is kind of a weird depiction. You thinking about it, like, oh, you guys are protecting me. Did I hit my head? Where's my helmet?
Yeah. But I thought that this was really cool because one thing that this story does so well is that it doesn't paint like any group of people, as in a black or white scenario. Like, there's not anyone that's all good really or all bad, except for William Stryker. And we get his twisted origin earlier in the story. But like, there's people in the mob that are for Stryker and people in the mob that are against Stryker. The cops, they're against him and they're trying to protect the mutants. There's the senator that's actually a mutant. There's like a lot of going on here. There's a lot of depth to the people. So like the crowds here, they're not one-sided. They're multifaceted, and it really does make for a really fascinating read. But yeah, so after poor Anne falls off stage and breaks her neck, and the mob tries to attack Magneto, Scott and the rest of the X-Men, they barge in and they're attempting to stop Charles, but it's kind of hard to stop the world's greatest telepath.
Exactly, yeah. They have to be a little tricky in this case.
Right, and because, he can read their thoughts,
Also, yes.
Yeah, and but what I also really like about this story is that Scott here, he comes up with a really ingenious plan, and they really showcase that here because Scott is a master strategist. like, and I've been saying it for years. Like when people would think of like who are the greatest strategists in the MC or in the Marvel universe, people firstly think of Captain America, but they forget about Cyclops.
Yeah, Cyclops would be better. Yeah,
I mean, it's a toss up between. I think that maybe Cyclops would be better. You know, it's hard to say. Yeah.
From what I remember reading growing up, I'd give it to him. Yeah,
right. A lot of people, like to hate on Cyclops. It's kind of like that mob mentality with him, also.
Right. Kind of like what happened with Nickelback back in the day. Like people just jumped all on that bandwagon.
Right. Yeah. It's true. Scott Summers is the Nickelback of the X-Men.
This is why I began podcasting, so we can make ludicrous statements like this. That was awesome. Well, very creatively said.
Thank you. I mean, but it makes sense though, because like no matter how many hits or platinum album Nickelback sells, or no matter how many times Scott Summers does cool stuff like we're about to explain,
right?
They will always get hate.
Exactly. Like for some reason, there's always going to be someone who's like, but he's still Scott Summers.
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
He's still stupid. Yeah.
Right.
Like, what are you talking about? Like, give me an example.
Go home, person. Go home, person. You're ignorant.
I'm not even saying that you have to like Scott Summers. I'm just saying that you have to give the man respect because he is a really great strategist and a really good leader.
Yeah. He's still not one of my favorite mutants. Mm-hmm. Like, I still like and respect his power set and all that, but I'd choose someone else to be on my team.
Yeah.
Unless I needed a strategist.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's like I think I still want Cyclops, for his brain.
Yeah, for
sure.
And a pair of the shades.
Ruby Quartz would probably be heavy on your nose. I always imagine.
I'd be okay with that.
But no. So Scott he comes up with this plan where he has Nightcrawler teleport Wolverine in close to Professor X, and Professor X, of course, deals with the immediate threat being Wolverine and Nightcrawler, and he psychically blasts those two away, and at that point, Cyclops unleashes enough of his concussive blast, his optic blast, to knock out Professor X.
At this point, it became relevant to me that Scott Summers would be a master pool player. Because he's bouncing this crap off the walls and like off a computer screen to directly hit right beside, freaking Xavier's head in this dome-esque seat he's in. So it's like, how'd you calculate the angles in this room? What?
Yeah.
And the computer screen tilts? Like, okay.
He's good.
Come play pool with me, man. Yeah.
Yeah, he's really good because he does calculate that shit perfectly.
Yeah.
And he executes it perfectly. And after that, he takes out the anti-cerebral machine. So that way, there's no more mutant killing. Professor X is now, back to himself. The mutant killing machine is now disabled. Things are looking up for the good guys now.
Yeah, hooray.
Yep. And so now we're down to like to the end of this whole entire Crusade deal here. The X-Men, they go out on stage, all of them, and they confront William Stryker. And, at this point, maybe it's an adrenaline rush, but you think that you'd be able to take a step back here and kind of see the error of your ways. But maybe it's the human ego. Maybe it's, the fact that some people just don't want to be wrong when they've gone so far in a certain direction.
Right. They're so good at putting blame on others.
Yeah.
Right.
And at this point, Stryker, he's trying to convince himself at this point that he's still the good guy in this story.
Right.
And that what he's doing is a mission from God, and that he's the one that has to eradicate all mutants. And he pulls a gun on Kitty Pryde, and he threatens to shoot, and then of course there is a gunshot, but it's coming from a police officer that shoots him right in the chest.
Yeah. At this point, I do still want to highlight, if I can go back a panel and page or so, that this is, again, one of the parts of this entire story which can literally be copied and pasted onto our current time and mind frame as a people today. So the stuff that they're talking about and the way that they're talking about it, you can tell that our boy Chris typed it out like this on purpose. You know, it was very carefully said, everything, sure, but the stuff they're mentioning still talks about. It's how to best explain this quickly. It's more than just about mutants versus humans in this point. You can tell that they're saying a deeper, relevant message.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. And this is why Chris Claremont is often regarded as the best writer of all time for the X-Men. And I think he is.
Yeah.
Because there's not a lot of people that can do that balance
Right.
with the X-Men.
I mean, he talks about race so damn well.
Oh, he does,
you know?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could take a lesson from that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, that's what I wanted to say. I just wanted to
Yeah.
throw that 2 cents out there, especially for the reader who actually appreciates, you know, reading to learn rather than reading to see cool fights in between pages.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Right.
People that are reading for the story. You know?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, like, for example, one of my biggest gripes has always been X-Men versus Avengers. To me, has always felt like it's just there for the fights,
Yeah.
and the story really doesn't make all that much sense. It's kind of lackluster. But, you know, that's the thing about the comic book community is that typically the comic community does care more about story than fights and matchups. And so the comic book community has no problem letting, you know, the writer and the company know that, hey, you messed this up, guys. This just isn't good.
Right.
But yeah, anyways, unfortunately, the movie community often doesn't see it quite that way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Go figure.
But no.
What makes money?
Yeah. So yeah, Stryker's taken down, and the police, you know, they're like, as far as we're concerned, Stryker's the criminal. They're free to go, and so yeah, the X-Men they are free to go. And then here in this in the last few panels, what we get here is a really interesting look at the difference in philosophies, mostly between Magneto and Scott Summers. Professor X here is really kind of taking the back seat here from the whole ordeal. And so this is just a really interesting group of panels that we get to read here with Professor X or with Magneto, I'm sorry, saying basically, look, Stryker may be dealt with, but that doesn't mean that the damage hasn't been done. The word's out there. There's people out there who are probably thinking Stryker's methods were wrong, but his ideas were right. Is what Magneto's saying. So he's saying we have to take the fight to them. You know, we have to join me on my crusade, and that way, you know, if we all work together, we can end this thing.
Yeah.
Because he's citing how well they worked together throughout the story, which, you know, they did work really well together.
Oh yeah, I mean, and they have numerous times. Yeah, but
yeah, and you know, he's asking Charles, you know, so what do you say? And at this point, Charles is like, yeah, you know, maybe you're right. And it's at this point where Cyclops speaks up, and you know, Scott's like, no, look, you know, when you made the X-Men here, you know, you preached to us about hope of a day where mutant humankind can live together. And you know, then he also kind of cites a little bit of what Kurt said earlier, you know, about how, you know, we can't be like them, you know, we have to set ourselves apart. And Cyclops really breaks it down and states the differences between the X-Men and Magneto, and really what makes them different. And but yeah, it's a really compelling and good argument on both ends here.
it really is. You know, and Scott did a great job of kind of representing the voice of reasoning you get after a 30-minute episode of some sitcom. You know.
Yeah.
In this case, it was, however, more of a powerful message rather than a feel good. Everything's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
You know.
Because Scott says, he even says, like, things are probably gonna get harder for us.
Yeah.
Like, it's not gonna get any better anytime soon. But that doesn't mean that we need to cave in and, you know, and start going to messier methods.
Right.
You know? But Magneto says something here that was really, really, really fun to read. He goes, "You are all fools. I have wept over too many graves. I would not do so over yours."
I mean,
Yeah,
that's a pretty powerful dismissal.
It
you
is,
know?
yeah.
And he didn't even use very strong language. Just he used language well. Like,
Yeah.
dang gum, dude.
Oh yeah. And so that's basically Magneto saying, look, like, I've extended, my hand to you guys. I've done everything I can. I came to your guys' aid and I helped you. I saved your lives, and I'm trying to work with you here. But I'm not gonna keep trying. If you don't want to be saved, then fine. But don't expect me to cry at your funerals. It was just really, really compelling what he said there as he left.
Like, this is not a happy ending, guys. This is a to be continued,
right?
Definitely, but.
And then Scott and Ororo, they have a final talk outside on the balcony, almost showing shades of a little bit of a romance there. But no, she basically just tells him that, you did a really good job, not just in there, convincing, Professor X of why he started this, but also back at Madison Square Garden, and, you basically telling Scott that, you kind of the backbone of this team here, and, we wouldn't be where we are without you. Just, kind of giving some reassurance to the man that was trying to be strong for the rest of the team.
Right.
And that's kind of where it leads us here.
Yep.
And I really like that because this graphic novel or this story here, it doesn't leave us with and they save the day and all is well. No, it's very much a story of we survived today. Things are going to get harder.
Yeah.
We have to find a way to prepare for tomorrow, though.
Yep. Just trying to reassure themselves that they've chosen the right way and that things can somehow get better for them and that there is a happy ending somewhere, somehow, but chances are it's against them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they say it best right there at the very end, saying that, love makes the world go round, but then they followed up with, I wish that were so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then that's it. That's what we get. Right. That's the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really love that because it's not trying to give us any kind of corny ass philosophy as to what we can follow for a perfect society, because with the human race being alive with the brain capacity that we have for however many thousands of years, we still haven't figured out a way to coexist together peacefully. We figured out so many things.
That's so sad.
We figured out how to fly. We've put people on the moon and in outer space. We've developed so much technology, and we have AC and running water and all kinds of cool technology, but we just cannot figure out how to coexist as a society. And,
once you think about it, it becomes amazing and tremendous and equally sad. Like, oh my gosh.
Right.
We suck. We're amazing and we rock and we're the best, but dadgum do we suck too.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like we're not done fully evolving as a species of people yet, because we haven't been able to put all the pieces together.
Right.
And
the question is, will we ever?
Will we ever? Yeah.
I know, right?
That's an excellent point. And that's also what I really love about this story here, because it does, beg you to ask those hard questions. And you guys know by now that I love stories that ask me to ask the hard questions, to think about the hard questions.
So let me ask you this, because this was a thought of mine earlier on that I wanted to hold off until we were finished with this podcast to share with you. Mm-hmm. So the title of this story, reflecting on it, God Loves, Man Kills. I feel personally that they're trying to give us the most reassuring message about this story right here in the cover. What are your thoughts about it, though?
I think, honestly, my first thought on that was I think that it was maybe Chris Claremont trying to do a little bit of damage control.
Interesting.
Because there are some people out there that don't like the story because they may find themselves associating more closely with William Stryker in some of his method or some of his thought processes. Okay. And a lot of people misread the story and they miss the point entirely, and they look at this as an attack on religion or an attack on like organized Christianity.
I can see that.
Or things like that, and they completely misconstrue the point and miss the message altogether.
Right.
So I think that the title of this, I think that Chris Claremont was also just trying to, trying to tell people, hey, look, this isn't an attack on on anyone's religion. This isn't an attack on anyone's belief. This is me telling a story, from this perspective here. But yeah, so I always thought that the whole God loves, man kills thing is
kind of like crowd control.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. The things I pulled from this might be, semi-obvious, or at least that's what I would have thought before your point of view being shared, because you're right. I feel that, there would be some people that see this as slanderous against churches and things of the sort. I really didn't even interpret this story that way at all until you just now mentioned it. Like, that possibility, that thought bubble didn't exist, But no, I really read the title kind of like a reassuring message, like, look, these things that happen, these racist comments, these attacks on people, all these unfortunate things that, people suffer through, even in our day and age, even in this story, weren't done because of any deity that we believe in or that you as a homie might listen to or choose to follow. That's cool. The attacks and the hate and the slander and all that BS and that bullshit that we got to deal with in life comes from man, And I thought that was kind of like a positive last minute touch, the story is super dark and the tone is great. Like, the tone of the story is fantastic, They have a powerful message and they stick to it. But the title itself was kind of like a poetic ribbon tying off the little present to us, saying, look, here's my story, and don't forget, God loves, man kills. Yeah. Just kind of...
Yeah, I think that's also a really good viewpoint, too. Yeah. I do agree. But yeah, as a whole, though, you can see now why I was really anxious to cover this story.
Oh, yeah. This is meaty.
Yeah.
For such a small book, It's very meaty. Yeah. There's a lot to digest from these short pages.
You look at the book and you're like, oh, there's not that much to this.
You know what? I am curious. Give me a daggum second here.
Yeah, especially when you consider that, I have the edition with the bonus material.
Okay. Yeah. No. The story is 70 pages long, people. You could read this in a day if you don't work.
Yeah.
Which, come on, how many of us actually work out? I'm joking. We all work, hopefully. But, no, you could finish this easily in like a couple of days.
Oh, yeah.
Tops. Yeah. It's a great read. Totally worth it, guys. Open your mind some, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is a great read. I do... We both do advise you guys, if you have time, if you want to read an X-Men story that maybe you haven't read before or forgot about, God Loves, Man Kills is a great one to pick up. But we're going to go ahead and wrap things up here. We hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. We enjoyed covering this one.
Hell yeah. It's not always, better said, we don't always get to cover stories that have such depth, It's fun whenever we get to dive in and talk about the deeper meanings.
Yeah. It is. But we'll definitely keep you guys posted on what's coming next and what's coming soon. But we can promise that you guys are really going to enjoy what's coming up next. Most definitely. Also, guys, before we wrap up, do yourselves and do us a favor. Check out the Patreon page. We will be uploading new content very soon, we promise. As a matter of fact, by the time some of you listen to this, there may be new content uploaded already.
That's true.
Yep.
That's true.
So the Patreon page, guys, is really devoted for a lot of things that are non-superhero related. So if you like the way that we cover things and review things, then you really like our Patreon page, as we'll be recovering cult classics, new video games, new movie releases that aren't superhero related, and cool TV shows, then some. We'll be doing other things also, like favorite horror movies or favorite horror creatures and other subtopics like that also.
We'll be getting into some good stuff here. But at the same time, I'm not sure if we've ever talked about this before, but the easiest way to get on the Patreon page for us, look us up by our name. Literally. Just type in Superhero Homies and that's that. I don't think we ever talked about that.
We did in the previous podcast.
Yep. Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Oh, yeah. So once you guys...
really make sure.
Yeah. So once you guys go to patreon.com, all you have to do is search for Superhero Homies. And as a matter of fact, if you go to our Facebook page, the link for this episode will be from Patreon. So yeah, all I have to do is check that out, guys. And once again, you can get a lot of bonus content, a lot of bonus material from us for just $3 a month. So if you guys can do that and feel so gracious as to sacrifice a single cup of coffee for a month of content.
Oh yeah, that's right. Coffee is $3. I don't drink coffee. Yeah.
that would be extremely great. We would be really gracious for the patronage of you homies.
Amen.
Oh yeah. But yeah, guys. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. As always, if you have any kind of questions, comments, gifts, those food supplies, then you can hit us up at superherohomies@gmail.com or the Facebook page Superhero Homies, or also Patreon. Superhero Homies. Yeah. But yeah, guys, as always, also feel free to leave us any kind of reviews you have on Facebook or iTunes. That really helps us out a whole lot.
Amen. And don't forget, you can always tell a friend, family member, or even coworker about the page. Let them jump on the bandwagon too and appreciate the good things we talk about.
Hell yeah. Let's make the homieverse grow, guys. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up, guys. As always, I'm Quentin.
I'm Kevin.
Till next time.